final episode of Luke Cage. Luke and Diamondback have their final battle, and every single person in Harlem has a front row seat. The moment that we have been waiting for, the big action scene of the entire series. That's not to say that there weren't any action or fighting scenes in some of the earlier episodes of Luke Cage, but this week's episode, which was the finale of the very first season, gave us our very first taste of what happens when Luke Cage goes up against someone who also has superpowers, that person being Diamondback. The first half of this episode is just dominated by their battle, which is frankly pretty freaking awesome, and the overall setting for it is great. It's in the heart of Harlem, so much so that they get surrounded by all of the citizens, the cops, the detectives, even Mariah Dillard are there to witness the ultimate battle between Luke Cage and Diamondback. Two brothers out for each other's blood. That is, of course, except for Luke Cage. He's going to go above that. He's there basically just to enact justice and to clear his name. But damned if it doesn't look awesome when he is doing it. This entire fight scene is very different from what I've seen from some of the other Marvel Cinematic works, where you look at Daredevil, who clearly has a very distinctive fighting style. He's very quick and swift, and has a lot of really intricate choreography. Luke Cage and Diamondback, when they fight each other, is just like watching two monsters fight. Just not really a lot of grace, just a lot of destruction. And I think that's really funny because during this entire fight scene, you have these flashback sequences which are going on where Luke and Willis were actually training back in the day. They were actually trying to be boxers, and they use a little bit of that in this episode, but for the most part, they're just picking up each other, throwing each other into cars, and just knocking the shit out of each other. There are a number of really memorable scenes from this episode. I think my favorite one, though, without a doubt, has to be when Luke Cage picks up Diamondback and throws him into the roof of Pops' barbershop, where he slams right into this ceiling fan. It's so painful looking, and even with that suit, you'd think that he would sustain a little bit more damage, but for the most part, Diamondback actually has the edge in most of the battle. A lot of that being because he's a real dirty fighter, and there's a lot of scenes with a ton of impact. I especially love that his suit is so strong that it can actually not only punch and hurt Luke Cage, but actually manage to send him flying into vehicles and get them completely dented, destroying all of the metal. It's a really thrilling fight scene, to say the least. What is interesting about it, however, and something that I think some people will like and some people won't like, is that because everybody is witnessing this fight, there's a lot of commentary from the crowd. Every single time one of these guys gets punched, you can hear the crowd literally going, "Ooh!" I swear I almost expected someone to start screaming, "World Star!" Predictably, of course, Luke Cage is a man who always moves forward, and thus he is able to defeat Diamondback with one big swift uppercut, which I actually have to say was pretty damn satisfying. However, even though the villain has been defeated, Mariah Dillard has been arrested for the death of Cornell Stokes, Luke Cage himself is also arrested by the police. However, he's going to go willingly as he wants to help out with the investigation. And this is where we do kind of like our final wrap-up of the very first season, where honestly it's left very open-ended for the future, because despite the fact that Luke Cage is going along with the entire investigation, revealing everything that happened, pouring out his case, at the very end of the episode, Luke is actually confronted by these guys from Seagate Prison, who claims that he still has to pay for his crimes and do his time and go back to jail. The thing is, though, Luke Cage is now an innocent man, and he is going to be able to get out of jail because, one, he knows he's innocent, and two, Bobby Fish actually has all of those secret files that Shades and Mariah had in the previous episode. He actually finds them at the very end of this one, which is letting us know that Luke is going to be just fine. That and the fact that he's going to have a very specific lawyer helping him out. There are two subtle drops to that in this episode, with Claire Temple mentioning that she knows a really good lawyer in the area. I think she's talking about Daredevil. The thing that really pisses me off, though, about this episode, although it was something of an inevitability, is despite the fact that Mariah was arrested and has been given the charges of killing her cousin, she actually manages to bullshit her way out of this situation. Because Shades actually managed to steal Misty Knight's phone when all of this fighting was going on, and he actually got a hold of Candace, and he got her out of the apartment and actually ended up killing her. And she was like some of the most key evidence to putting Dillard away. So Dillard no longer has any other paper trail. She's able to escape. Misty Knight is super pissed off. Everybody's like, what the hell is going on? Mariah survives, she opens up Harlem's paradise, it looks like both her and Shades are getting into something of a sexual relationship, which was certainly hinted at in the earlier episodes of Luke Cage, and it just messes with your head a little bit. You'd expect the ending to be a little more happier, but it's actually not. This is truly just the beginning of Luke Cage's story. And I have to say that those guys who came from Seagate, total cock blockers. Both Luke and Claire were finally about to go get some damn coffee. So what's the rundown on the final episode of Luke Cage? This one is certainly going to be defined by that big fight scene at the beginning of the episode between Luke Cage and Diamondback. It was really satisfying. Definitely not my favorite fight from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but without a doubt my favorite battle from the entire Luke Cage series. It just had this really great feeling to it, and everybody actually being there to witness it happening actually made it even more of a unique fight. It's actually kind of strange that the cops and everything allowed all of this to go down, all of this destruction, all of those cars they just allowed to get destroyed, just so they could witness this amazingly badass battle. I almost expected that the cops were going to come in and start just putting Judas bullets all over these guys, but thank God that didn't happen. They actually allowed them to have this big final fight. And speaking of Diamondback, despite the fact that he was defeated and hospitalized, at the very end of the episode, in his hospital room, is the return of Dr. Bernstein. It looks like he's actually going to be experimenting on him and trying to make him into the next Luke Cage. This is another really great cliffhanger. There were a lot of those moments at the end of this episode right here. I will say this was definitely one of the cheesiest episodes of Luke Cage, but it's the type of cheese that I actually really like, especially that one scene when they're finally back at the police headquarters, and Luke Cage is giving this just immensely corny speech about hope and changing the streets of Harlem and how it relates to all of the people during the entire civil rights movement and everything. And I understand what he's getting at, but it just comes across as really damn cheesy. And that makes sense. I mean, he is kind of a corny guy, especially according to Claire. Speaking of which, I thought it was really funny, too, even when he got into the cop car at the end with the Seagate guys, that he was even letting them know, he's like, if you guys would have just waited a little bit longer, I could have had something hot and dark waiting for me. Overall, I think the entire series wrapped up quite nicely. I think the first season was a pretty damn big success. It's still not better than Daredevil in my humble opinion. I think it's pretty damn close though. I mean, Luke Cage is the second Marvel TV show that I've really, really loved. I loved Daredevil. I think S.H.I.E.L.D. is okay for the most part. And Luke Cage, overall, was a pretty damn good first season. It was a little disjointed at times. I do feel that the first half of the season was just a little bit better. When Diamondback came in, the series really got shaken up. And in some ways it was good, in some ways it was bad. But still, I got a lot of entertainment value out of the very first season of Luke Cage. There were enough memorable moments and characters to allow me to even rewatch the season again. It's that damn good. And if only just to pick apart all the little details that I missed the first time around. And this is a series that has a lot of details going for it. I still think the best thing about Luke Cage, though, at the end of the day, has got to be the backdrop. Harlem is a living, breathing character in this series, and it adds so much to the lore of Luke Cage. It really does make him feel like a local hero. Whenever you watch a other Marvel movie, they're always going to all these different places, and you have a sense that they don't really operate in a very specific area. They just sort of do their own thing. If someone calls, they go. But Luke Cage is the living embodiment of what is good about Harlem and how it can change. And that's really the best thing about this entire series. It was a great reinterpretation of the character. It made him even more culturally relevant than he ever was before, and I think it's going to make a lot of Luke Cage fans. It also helps that the series was done with a lot of gusto, lots of great actors, especially from Rosario Dawson and all of the villains in the show, in particular Mariah Dillard and Cornell Stokes, Cottonmouth. These guys were great. But there's also Diamondback, who just managed to chew the scenery in every single scene that he is in. Every single time that he was on screen, your attention was right at that guy. And that's exactly what a villain should do. They should suck you into a vortex of creepiness. I'm giving the final episode of Season 1 a 5 out of 5 Check it out, Marvel fans. You'll definitely see something that you'll like. If any of you guys saw the final episode of Luke Cage, make sure to tell me what you thought about it in the comment section below. What did you think of the final battle between Luke and Diamondback? Did you have a favorite scene from the episode? What did you think of the very first season of Luke Cage? Did you like it? Did you not like it? And what do you hope to see from the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Works, whether they be movies or even Netflix TV series? And are there any other Marvel shows that you guys want me to look at and review? I've gotten a lot of requests for Daredevil. I would actually at one point like to do a review of the 2 seasons of Daredevil and maybe even Jessica Jones, even though it's a show that I really didn't care for all that much. What I will say is, I loved Luke Cage, I thought it was awesome, and it was so much fun to review this show for you guys. So thank you all for tuning in. If you want to see any of the previous reviews of all of the episodes, there will be a playlist on our channel, Super Kami Guru 9000. Make sure to check that out. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe, leave me a comment or 2, and make sure to like the video. Thank you guys again for watching, and as always, stay dandy, baby!